3 because Fury and Miria and Guy were the only static members. So they were the only ones that I concerned myself really with beefing up. I kind of screwed myself over doing that. Like, I wouldn't even buy gear or spells for my fourth party member. Because my friend told me if I wanted to do Soul of Rebirth, which is kind of like, it's the game's like extra dungeon that you do with the characters that die throughout the game. 4 characters die. And I didn't beef them up at all, so the dungeon's going to be like impossible for me to do, but I don't really care, to be honest. But yeah, like even when I got Leon, like I was planning to bump Leon up some, like buff him up some, just because I knew I wasn't going to get any other party members. But at that point I was like, well, if I really wanted to, I could probably kill off all my party members and just solo the final boss with Furion. That's how strong I was. So I was just like, I'm just going to, press on and just keep pretending I have 3 characters and a 4th useless person. In terms of like combat and battles, I thought the random battles were a little bit more deeper and strategic than in Final Fantasy 1. I reached a point in Final Fantasy 1 where I could pretty much just destroy any random monster with my auto attack, or not my auto attack, too much MMOs, my regular attack, and like at least one hit. If not, then the guy that was going to attack next would take him out easily. But I found it was much more beneficial in Final Fantasy 2 to find some monsters' elemental weaknesses, like if they're weak to fire, blizzard, lightning, etc. And then there were some enemies that were really resistant to physical attacks, like Gigas and Golem monsters, particularly. This was also the first Final Fantasy I played where I actually found status effects to be useful, mainly due to the magic leveling. Really increased the accuracy, because in other Final Fantasies I would never use spells like Stop. I'd rarely use Silence or Blind or any spells like that, because they just, most of the time they end up missing and you just wasted a turn where you could have done damage and actually worked towards killing the monster. I didn't use status effects that much, but I found after I leveled them up that they were accurate enough to be useful, mainly when I was fighting 4 or 5 monsters at once, or more. I found it to be useful. Or if there was like one particular monster that was going to be so much trouble, like they had status effects or something, I could like stop him and it was actually accurate and would work most of the time. One annoying aspect of this game was that when your buffs are lower level, they tend to miss, which I thought was weird. I found it weird when I cast the buff on my entire party and it misses on the person I casted it with. Like if I cast Protect with Maria and it misses Maria, I'm like, wow, you can't even hit yourself with it, but you can hit everybody else. So you have to sometimes spend a couple turns casting the same buff just because it missed 1 or 2 people. But once your magic level got decent, I think I ended the game with my buffs around level 7-ish. So they were somewhat accurate. I actually found that the individual monster strength varied more than in the first one, because like I said, after a point, I got to the point where I was strong enough in Final Fantasy 1 to where I could just kill anything with my regular attack, but there were actually some monsters who they seemed to scale more. I shouldn't really say that varied, but they scaled more towards the end than they seemed to do in the first Final Fantasy. One aspect of the game that confused me that I ended up dual wielding with all my melee characters. You can you have left and right hand equipment, and you can equip either like a weapon and a shield, or 2 weapons, one in each hand. And about halfway through the game, I was equipping a shield, and I was like, it's not increasing my defense any, but my attack power like doubles with another weapon. So I was like, why am I equipping a shield? So I ended up going through the rest of the game with dual wielding, and I actually found out after I had sold all my shields that shields affect more your agility and evasion than your defense, which doesn't make sense to me, because I figure if you're hulking around a giant chunk of metal, it's going to help you reduce the damage that you're taking, not help you dip, dodge, dive, and duck, because the thing's got to weigh at least 50 pounds. It's not going to make you more nimble and agile. But I figured at that point I was like, well, I'll probably find better shields, so it's not that big a deal. I didn't find really any other shields. I sold all my shields. I was like, damn. But the game was still easy enough, for the most part. It was kind of weird because I do think some attacks were percentage based. Because some of the damage I was taking from some monsters, like there was this monster in the last dungeon called Death Riders, I think, and they would hit me sometimes for anywhere from 500 to like 3,000 damage. And I was like, that's gotta be percentage based, because like I would look up videos like after I got after I beat like a boss, because I wanted to see like how my characters compared in strength to like somebody just regularly playing through the game. And I would have like 3 times as much HP as them. And I'm like, if they're going to do 3,000 damage, that's got to be percentage based, because if my characters weren't leveled this much, that would be like a one-shot. Because I watched one video where the guy only had like 2 to 3,000 HP for each character for the final boss, and I think I had Furion and Guy up to almost 6,000, and Maria had like 4,000 by the end.